All right, hello everyone. I'm going to take you through another grade 5 lesson. I taught this in week 2 of the fall semester a few years ago. I believe the curriculum said I needed to teach modes of transportation, like going to school modes of transportation, and I think that was it. So it was a really easy lesson, so I tried to expand on it. I included time, I included some other vocabulary. I made it questions like when do you leave home, when do you arrive at school, things like this, just to try to make it a little bit harder, okay? So the kids were focused. They thought it was something a little bit more interesting than just what the curriculum originally said. So, of course, in the beginning of the lesson, I want to establish classroom management. So I go over the rules. Okay, this is only week 2, so I want to remind them about the rules. And this is the way I would do it. I would show them this slide and I would say, what is rule number 1? Okay, and they have to read it off to me. Rule number 1 is sit nicely. Again, training them to answer me in a full sentence. And then for rule number 2, they could see that they were supposed to ask me. So I would say, everyone, and they would say, what is rule number 2? And I would say, rule number 2 is clear your desk. And it would go back and forth this way, okay? Sometimes I ask, sometimes they ask to establish the classroom control, okay? Just to remind them, okay? And yeah, I would go through them all, okay? And then after this, I would show them this and I would remind them about the stars, okay? And I would say, how many stars do you have? Okay, now this was only week 2, so only one of the teams at this time would have had a star, because in week 1, the team with the most points between the girls and the boys would be awarded a star, okay? But as the semester went on, different teams were accumulating different amounts of stars, okay? So by the middle of the semester, the girls maybe had 3 stars, the boys had 4 or whatever, okay? In some classes, it got kind of lopsided. Maybe it was like 4-2 or something like this, or 6-3, okay? But this was having stars in play makes the point system more powerful, okay? If you don't keep track of stars and put the stars on the board where the students can see them, they have less stake in it, okay? And they're less motivated to do well in the games or to perform well in the class or to be obedient, okay? And sit nicely and not misbehave, okay? Which they're gonna lose points for, okay? So I think the star system is quite important and it worked wonders in a public school class where there's 50 kids, okay? There's 50 kids in this class, don't forget. So if you're teaching a large class or even a small class, like I would do this even if I was teaching 10 students or 4 students or 2 students even, I keep track of points. Okay, so I do it like this. I say, boys, how many stars do you have? Okay, eventually you can have the girls ask the boys this question, but at this point in week 2, I was still asking. And the boys would say, we have, and at this point it was just 1. So we have 1 star, okay? Make sure they don't say the S, okay? And I do the same thing with the girls, and then I move on, okay? And I remind them, be good and you'll get another star. Do you want another star? Yes, okay. So this is just reminding them to behave. Okay, let's move on. Now, as always, it's grade 5, so I asked them, did you bring a notebook today? If you have a notebook, let me see it. And they're all going to start holding it up. Okay, they're going to start holding it up. And I'm going to put it on your desk. Now, in week 2, a lot of students are still not going to have their notebook unless they have a really good Chinese teacher who's going to remind them about this and make sure they have it. So in week 2, they still are not really bringing it. So I'm not going to be removing a ton of points at this point. But I'm going to see which team has more, okay? So if more girls than boys brought their notebook, I'm going to give the girls points, okay? I'm going to give the girls like 5 points or something to encourage the boys to bring their notebook next time, okay? By the 3rd, 4th week, you want to make sure they're all bringing their notebook. And if at that point, by week 3 or 4, for every student that doesn't have their notebook, their team is losing a point, okay? So I had some classes in week 3 or 4 where some of the boys, there were still like 10 of them who didn't have their notebook. Okay, they would lose 10 points right off the bat. So I'd have a negative score because I start the class with 10 points for each team and 10 points for Mr. Matt as well. So the boys, if they didn't have their notebooks, 10 points right off the bat, like they were gone, okay? So this would really encourage them the next week to remember to have that notebook. Okay, warm up. Now, the warm-up is, everything I just did is kind of like a warm-up, I guess, right? Like they're practicing some speaking, they're asked to do some stuff, but this is the real warm-up for the class. Now, in grade 5, Of course, I asked them the date and stuff in the beginning of class. I didn't mention that, but I would ask them the date, like after I say hello to them. And you always notice that they mispronounce these numbers. So I like to practice this. And what I would do is I would first say like 4th, and they say 4th, 5th, 5th, 15th, 15th. And then I would make it like a competition, okay? So I would call on a girl and a boy who are sitting next to each other, and I make them stand up. And then I quickly say, are you ready? They say yes. And then I point at one of the numbers on the board, and they both have to struggle to say it quickly. And then I quiz them again, like based on pronunciation. So I'm going to listen to them carefully and then award a point based on who said it better. And then I'm going to say it again. I'm at 20th. Oh, Mr. Matt is very good. Mr. Matt also gets a point. And I didn't mention this, but I would always make sure I say this word to get them used to me, get used to hearing me say this word so they become familiar with this word, because it's very important pronunciation, and they can see the Chinese translation because I'm going to be mentioning pronunciation a lot throughout the year, and I want them to think about pronunciation and try to focus on it, because let's face it, as a foreign teacher teaching in China, why do they have me? They have me to improve their fluency, to improve like their day-to-day speaking, because they're talking to a native speaker, but also because pronunciation. I mean, I speak like a native speaker. They want to learn my pronunciation. Okay, so I move on, review, and this is week 2. So I still have the question I presented to them in the first week. The first lesson of the semester was a lot about their summer vacation. Okay, so I asked them, who remembers this question? They can see it in Chinese. Okay, and then I showed them again. If someone remembered it, they would tell it to me, and then I would add a point. And then after I add a point, I show it to them. I say the question, they repeat it, and then I show them the options they can tell me. Okay, now the students, I would call on individuals at this point in week 2 because I want to keep everything under control, but they can give me different answers. Okay, they can give me different answers. So I might say, everyone ask me the question, like, how did you spend your summer vacation? I'll say, I went traveling to Beijing with my family. Then they ask me again. I say, I stayed in Nanjing. So boring. Then they ask me again, and I say, I studied Chinese all summer. Students laugh, and then I would call on individuals. Okay, I do this quickly. I know like it's individual drilling in a class of 50, but if I at this point in week 2, if I ask the whole class and they're all screaming out, like I can't hear what anyone said. Okay, so what I want to do is call an individual, have them give me an answer, have them model it for other students in the class to hear, and then if they do it really well and they make a mistake, I'll correct them. And then as the semester goes on, because I'll continue to present this question for the next 2 or 3 weeks, more and more students will get an opportunity to answer. And eventually by like the 3rd or 4th week, I might actually have them ask their desk mate this question. Okay, just depends on the class and how well they're doing this. All right, let's move on. This was another question that was presented in week 1. Actually, I think this was the lesson of week 1. When is your birthday? I believe this was the lesson. So I'm reviewing this because this is what they learned. And I think week 1 included like months of the year, and it had some ordinal numbers and stuff. So I want them to practice this. A lot of the students couldn't say this, and like they couldn't remember. Like my birthday is on my birthday's on the 3rd of July, So like this was a little bit difficult for them. So in the first week, we learned the months and we practiced this in the game. And then in the 2nd week and 3rd week, I continued to ask them this as a review. Only spent a minute or so doing this. And yeah, I might have them ask their desk mate this question. But again, sometimes they ask their desk mate and I don't even know if they're doing it. So at this point in week 2, I'd probably ask individuals like rapid fire, like try to ask like 3 or 4. Okay, now I say, I have a question for you. How do you come to school every day? Okay, and then I would point at the board and the students would give me. Now this is really easy for grade 5. Okay, they're gonna know these like vocabulary. They're gonna know it. So I point at the first one. They all tell me by bus, and I say I come to school by bus every day. And then by car, I come to school by car every day. And then for the next one, on foot, like I have the kids say the answer. I come to school. I point at the sentence on the board. I come to school on foot every day. Okay, and I would continue to do it until all of them are there. Okay, this is really easy for grade 5. So this is just like kind of a bridge into the actual lesson. Okay, so the main thing I want to make sure they know in this lesson are these important words. So I ask them if they know this in English, and someone will raise their hand. I call on them and they tell me arrive. And I'm like, good job, arrive, arrive. And I have like a TPR, like an action for this. I hold my hand out, my one hand out, and I make my other hand like with like the walking fingers, like it's two legs, and then it lands on my hand. And I go, arrive, 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 arrive. I arrive at school. I arrive at school. He arrives at school. Arrive, arrive. And then I just do the action with my hands, and the students say the words. They're used to me doing this sort of thing because I taught them when they were in grade 4. So they know I like TPR. They know I like actions and stuff. So I just do the action. They say the word. Okay. And then the next one, I see if they know it. Oh, also, because the notebook is here, they should be writing this down their notebook quickly. They know if there's a notebook here, they should write it down. Okay, so for the next one, I asked if they know it, and they say leave. Leave is one of my hands out, other hand with the two fingers standing on it, and then my hand moves off. My one hand moves away, like walks away. Okay, and it's leave, 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 leave. I say write it down, and then I might stand in front of the class as they're writing it down. I'm like, are you ready? And then I hold my hand out and I do the arrive action. And the first student to say arrive, I give that team a point. Okay. And they know I'm going to do something like this. So I'm like miming it again and again and again. I'm like, arrive, arrive with my action, and the students are saying it. Then I might do leave, and the students have to say leave. And I'll just do this to keep them on point, to make sure they're pronouncing it and they know my actions. Okay. Come. Again, I would ask if they know the Chinese, and then I would say come, and then come is like, there's an action, it's just like me waving them toward me. So I might do the action for come, they say come, then I might throw in arrive and leave, and it's like, I'm getting the class kind of excited. Like I'm doing these actions, they're saying it, and I'm giving them points. And they know I like to do this, so I'm just trying to train them. Okay, now here I teach them the word far, and I have my action for far, like my hands spreading apart from each other, like really far away from each other, far, far, far. I forget actually what my action was for this. But whatever action you feel comfortable with, you can do any action. Or sometimes if I couldn't think of an action for a word, like this one's easy, obviously, but if I couldn't think of an action, I might ask the students, can you think of an action? And then like they'll raise their hand and show me one. And sometimes like I would adopt a student's action and then take that action to all the other classes. Like if it was the first class of the day of that week, and I didn't have a good action for something, I would ask the kids to help me, and then I would take one of the students' actions I really liked, and that would be the action for the rest of the year, and yeah, I gave them that opportunity. So there's far, and then close, near, and again, action. Again, in the middle of all this drilling, I'm putting I forgot to mention this, I'm putting the flashcards for these words on the board, like I'm lining them up as well, and I'm doing the actions, okay? And I'm doing the actions randomly, see if they remember them. Okay, so the first game, because I mentioned this in the other video, and I'll say it again, I use a task-based approach. So I teach something and I play a game, okay? Now my TPR, this total physical response TPR game, is really simple. Like pretty much I just do an action and they have to say the word, okay? So I taught them a bunch of actions just now, and they're gonna have to say the word. Or there's other ways you can do this. You can bring them up and blindfold them, and you could say the word and they have to do the action. You could bring like 6 students up, have them face the class, and then stand behind them and show the class a flashcard. The class does the action, and the standing students need to say the word. I have another video on my channel about TPR games you can do with a class, a large class, that's really useful. You can check it out. And so these TPR games are really good for getting the kids to memorize words, because actions help you memorize words. There's like connections between like your memory. If you do an action, it's easier. I learned this firsthand with Chinese when I first learned like the word inside and outside. One of my friends just was saying inside and outside in Chinese doing an action, and like I still remember that to this day. So I know it's powerful, and that was like 6 years ago. Okay, next part of teaching. I say, how do you come to school every day? How do you come to school every day? Now, grade 5, they understand what I'm saying, okay? Now, maybe they can't say it fluently, so I drill it once with the whole class, and then I show them this. I come to school, and I'll show them this. I live close to or far from school. And I go through each one. So I say, ask me the question, how do you come to school every day? And I say, I come to school by bus. I live far from school. They ask me again, how do you come to school every day? I come to school on foot. I live close to school. I'm like, who wants to try? And a student raised their hand. I'm like, okay, you stand up. Everyone, ask him, how do you come to school every day? And then he says, I come to school by metro. I live far from school. Good job. Perfect. Boys get a point. I need a girl. Girl, raise her hand. Okay, you stand up. Everyone ask her, how do you come to school every day? I come to school by car. I live far from school. I might mix it up and say all of the boys ask the girl. If the boys ask well, give them a point. Then the girl answers pretty well, give her a point to encourage them. Have one team ask another team, or one team ask one student, another team ask another student. And yeah. How do you come to school every day? I come to school by bike. I live close to school, okay? And again, task-based approach. I just taught them something. I'm going to play a game. Now, I showed them how this game works. This is an example. So I call on a student, a good student, and I have them stand up and come to the front or at their desk. It doesn't matter. And I say, how do you come to school every day? And I tell them, you can say anything. You can say anything, anything. Just tell me, how do you come to school every day? And he says, I come to school by bus. I live far from school. I'm like, okay, let's see. And I click it, and it shows. Okay, do you see the red ones? The red circles? By bike and close to? If he said that, he could get 3 points. But he said by bus and far from school, so he only gets how many points? 1 point, okay? So in this game, they don't know where I'm going to put the circles. So they don't know how many points, okay, they're going to be able to get. They're just going to give me an answer, and if they're lucky, if they guess the right one, they can get 3 points. No matter what, they're going to get at least 1 point, okay? So I do it like this. I'm like, okay, I need another student, or I might have 2 students do it, right? So on the board, I have the flashcards still. So I have little magnets, and I bring them up and I say, how do you come to school every day? And they can put their magnet by one of the flashcards, or they can just say it to me and I'll put the magnet by the flashcard, or I'll put a mark by the flashcard so I remember what they said. So the whole class will ask, how do you come to school every day? And a girl will say, I come to school by bike. I live close to school. Okay, I put a mark by the bike. Then everyone asked the boy. The boy says, I come to school by car. I live far from school. Then I say 3, 2, 1, and I show them where the winner was. Okay, so if either one of them said on foot and close to school, they get 3 points. But if they didn't say that, their team only gets 1. And I rinse and repeat. Bring 2 more students up, or you can bring 2 girls and 2 boys. You know, you could bring up 4 students and have them do it. Or they can do it from their desk, and you're using different colored marker, a different colored chalk to signify, like if a girl or boy said bus or bike or by metro, okay? And I do this a few times. So at this time, of course, like the whole class asks, they all answer, then I reveal the points. If anyone said by car, they get 3 points. And the kids really like this game because it's exciting and it's achieving the purpose, which is to practice this question, have them say it a bunch of times, and to have them practice the answer. And they don't even realize that they're practicing something really well, right? Because they're just saying it again and again, and they're just waiting for the points, okay? But this is very useful. They're saying full sentences. I mean, this is not super difficult, but it's not super easy either. There's a lot of words there, you know. Another way to do it is you could start removing parts of the sentence, so either the class can't see it or the people answering can't see it. Like you could remove come or to or school or something, so the students have to remember other parts of the answer on their own. Again, rinse and repeat, show the answer, give points. Rinse and repeat, okay? Okay, next part of the lesson is about time. Now, at this point in the class, you're probably about 20 minutes into the class. You're working on like halfway here. The students know time by 5th grade, but I want to review. So I go through each one. I point 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. They all know this, okay? I'm just reviewing it. I go through all of them again, I might quickly point at one of them, and the first student who says it, like if I point really quickly, point at 8, and then a boy says 8 o'clock. I'm like, boy's gonna point. I might randomly do that in the middle of class just to keep them on their toes, And then I go through these, and I point at it, and then they give me the answer. In 5th grade, they know this, okay? They're gonna say 12:30, and I want them to learn both, okay? So they'll say 12:30, and I say 12:30, okay? You can also say 12:30. Next one, 1:30, 1:30. 4:15, 4:15, okay? 8:15, 8:15. I go through each one just to review with them. And then I say, okay, we're gonna play a game, okay? And I probably walk to the back of the class, say, you, stand up. I'm going to show you a time. Quickly say the time, okay? And I want to get them to quickly be able to produce the time. Okay, that's the purpose, to improve their fluency. They can say something quickly. I'm like, are you ready? They say, yes, I am. Good job. Yes, I am. Okay, ready? And I show them. And they're like, 2 o'clock. Okay, whoever says it first gets a point. You could also do this with the whole class. Okay, maybe you do the first few rounds of the whole class. Maybe you have a whole row stand up. There's multiple ways you can play this game, okay? So maybe I say, okay, everyone in the class is playing. Are you ready? And then I show it. And then they're like, 7:30, okay? And like I try to see who is first. If it's a tie, I give both teams a point, okay? This is hard, okay? This is one of the reasons I want to focus on the time, is because no students in China, like that I have taught, knew this before I taught it to them. To be able to say 3:09, okay? 3:09. They don't know they should say O here, okay? So this is something they make mistakes with. I mean, some teachers teach them 9 minutes after 3. Yeah, I mean, like you could teach them that, but I want to teach them the easiest way. 3:09. A lot of students just say 3:09. That's what they'll say. 3:09. So this is a funny moment in class. If I hadn't taught it to them before the game, because sometimes in class I would write it on the board when I'm teaching them, so they know it by the game. But sometimes I don't, because I really want them to. I show it to them during the game, and they're like, 3:09. I'm like, 3:09. Does anyone know how to say this? And no one knows. I'm like, it's 3:09. Okay, 3:09. And so this is something really good for Chinese students to learn how to say it fluently. And continue on with the game. Okay, first student in the whole class, or if it's by group or by row, to give me the correct answer gets a point. Okay, I do this all the time. I go through all of them. And yeah, I continue. Maybe I won't have so many rounds. It just depends how far into the class I am. Maybe I'll cut it down to only like 5 or something. Okay, next part. Okay, I leave home at about, and I tell them 7:45 every day. And I might say, what does about mean? Okay, and by 5th grade, some of the really good students might know that it means this, but I want to show the Chinese so they know for sure. Okay. And then I say, what's the question? Who can tell me the question? How do I say the question? And then they might give it to me, okay? Some student raises their hand, I call. If they give me the correct answer, or if it's close, I'll give them a point, okay? And because they might say, what time do you leave home every day? Of course, that's right, okay? When do you leave home every day? It's the same. So I award points for both. So I ask them and I say the answer. I might call an individual student, maybe, or maybe I'll just ask the whole class and they'll scream it out. But they're not going to scream out a sentence. They're just going to scream out a time, which I don't really like. So I'm going to wait till the game. I'm going to wait for the game to practice this. But I just want them to see it, to understand it, and then I move on to. I removed it here because maybe when I'm asking the students, I want them to say their own time. Okay, I don't want them to just say my time. So I remove it for that. Same thing here, okay? I tell them I arrive at school at about 7:30 every day, okay? And I remind them about means this, and then I go and say, how do you say the question? Rinse and repeat, and yeah, maybe I'll ask them. It depends how quickly I'm moving through the lesson if I'm going to ask an individual student this question before the game. A game, yes, okay? I like to have lots of games, task-based approach, keep the kids engaged, excited. They want to play, they want to learn. That's what I want. Okay, so here's how it works. I would have 2 students come to the front, and I have the whole class ask the question, when do you arrive at school every day? Now here you see the word arrive. I didn't say this before, but this is one of the words I taught earlier in the lesson. That's on purpose. Okay, so I asked the girl says, I arrive at school at about, and she gives me an answer, okay? She has to say one of these. She can say any of them, 7:45, 7:30, 8, 8:15. I guess I should mention this before you play the game. You should quickly review how to say the time, just in case. And then she'll give me her time. And I'll click it, and there's points behind there, okay? So if she said that she arrives at school at, I can't remember what that time was, but if she said that time, then I would give her, I would reveal the point value behind that. And if she said it really, really well, I'd give her 3 points. Then I ask the boy, or I'd have the whole class ask the boy, everyone ask him. Or another way is you have all of the boys in the class ask the boy. If all of the boys ask really well, award them with 2 points. And then the boy answers, and let's say he says, I arrive at school at about 8 o'clock every day. I click it, 2 points, boys get 2, okay? And I rinse and repeat. Now this one is, when do you leave home every day? So 2 students, I might not bring them up to the front because it takes time for them to walk up, and I might just have them stand at their desk. And I say, okay, the girl is first. All girls ask her. And all the girls say, when do you leave home every day? And the girl says, I leave home at about 6:15 every day. Now, if the girls ask really well, I'll give them points. And then she says 6:15, I click it. 4 points, wah! And I add 4 points to their score. Then I say, all boys ask him. The boys ask. They don't ask as well as the girls did, so I only give them 1 point. Boys are, naughty. And then the boy answers, I leave home at about 6:45 every day. Only 3 points, give them the points, and move on. Now here you can see that I start removing some of the words, okay? So I call in 2 more students. I say, all girls ask her. And the girls are like, when do you? And I'm like, which one is it? And then they see that leave is here, so they know they have to say leave. Very smart. When do you leave home every day? I give them 2 points if they were good. The girl says, I leave home at about 7:10 every day. Very good. She remembered the at here, and she said the time correctly, 3 points. Then I do the same thing with the boys. Boy says 6:40, 4 points, okay? So there's different point values behind each one. So they could have gotten a low score here. Now more things are being removed, okay? And I'm going to continue the process now, but they're going to have to remember more missing words, okay? And again, same process, different point values, okay? There's some high points here. And this is the last one. Again, same thing. I'm removing different words, and there's different point values. Okay, now for the end of the class, I'm going to play this game called Sparkle, which the students really, really, really love. I stole this game from another teacher who I believe stole it from someone else. It's a fantastic game. The kids love this game. Okay, so here's how it works. I need 5 girls and 5 boys. So I select 5 girls and 5 boys. So I always say something like, who would like to play the game? They all raise their hand. They love this game. And I'm like, I'm only going to choose the very good students. Okay, so encourage them. Now, I'm not always going to do it this way. If it's a bad class or a naughty class, then maybe I'll do this. But sometimes it doesn't really help you to only pick on who you think are the good students, because they're the students who are asking or were answering your questions before, okay? So that you might only be including some of the class. So in this case, I might bring up some of the students who were just quiet. They were good students. They were just quiet students that maybe weren't raising their hand or participating a ton, but I'll bring them up for this game. So what you do is you bring up 5 girls, 5 boys. You tell them, I need you boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. They're facing the class. So now you have 10 students of 50 standing up in the front, right? So you have 20% of the class standing up in the front, facing the class, and I show them this question, and each student in a row, they need to say the question word by word. So for example, if the first person is going to say the first word, and then the next person is going to say the next word. Now, the way I generally do it is because the kids are trying to not say the hardest words or something. This sentence doesn't really have tons of hard words, but a lot of times they want to position themselves so that they're like in place to say an easy word. So I make the two in the front, like the two that are in the front of the line, rock, scissors, paper. And then the winner can decide if they want to be in the front and go first, or if they want to let the other person go first, which would change the order of all the boys and girls throughout the game. Okay. So once they're in their place after the rock, scissors, and paper is over, I say, okay, ready, go. And for the first few rounds, for the first round at least, you can let them look behind them and see what it says. Okay. Or I might say you can look, but then during the game, you can't look. So they can look right before the game. And then when the game starts, they can't look. Okay. And so they're word by word. Now they're just standing there, and the first person says, how? The next person, do. Next person, you. Next person, come. Next person, to. Next person, school. Okay? When the sentence ends, the person after school has to say sparkle. Okay? And the person after the person that says sparkle is out. Now, if anyone earlier in the sentence had made a mistake, for example, they say how, do, and the next person forgets to say you and just says come. So how, do, come. If that happens, the person who made the mistake is out, okay? They have to go sit down, okay? If there's no mistakes, then it just keeps going. So how do you come to school? The person after school says sparkle. The person after the person who says sparkle has to go sit down, okay? And so after that happens, they say the answer. So the next person in the line, so in this case, it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh person says sparkle, assuming there was no mistakes in the sentence so far. The eighth person is out, has to go sit down. The ninth person starts the answer, I. The 10th person says come. Okay. Now, because there's only 5 girls and 5 boys, the 11th student is the first student in the line. It says they continue. So to school, and this person needs to say the time. Or the mode of transportation in this case. Sorry. So the next person would say, I come to school, and she would say, by car. Okay? Because this is the end of the sentence, the next person in the line needs to say sparkle. Okay? The next person in the line says sparkle, and the next person in the line is out. And that's how this game works. And you can do the same thing with all of the questions and answers. The same thing. So after that round is over, I would have those 10 students sit down, bring another 10 students up, and rinse and repeat. First 2 rock, scissors, paper. They decide who wants to go first. They can quickly look at what the question is, that it's arrive, and then they go. One student, when, do, you, arrive, at, school, sparkle. Next person's out. Next person, I, arrive, at, school, at, about, and they say the time. And then after that person says the time, the next person says sparkle, the person after them is out, okay? So slowly, even if there's no mistakes being made, the number of students is being whittled down. But I guarantee you, the kids are gonna get nervous, they're gonna, they forget a word here or there, and they are out. Or if they take too long, if they're just standing there, like it's like when, do, you, and they're standing there like, they forgot the word arrive, then I'm like 3, 2, 1, you're out, and they go sit down, and the next person says that word, arrive, and then it continues. At, next person, school, next person, sparkle, person after sparkle goes and sits down. Now you can change the word sparkle to any word you want. This is just the word that I learned. If it's grade 1, you can set, the word can be something easy like go. When I did this game with grade 4, they were just messing up the word sparkle. That was like the hardest word for some of them to remember. So that word was getting them out. But I would just tell it to them and they could say it. They wouldn't be out. But eventually they know the name of the game is Sparkle. They all remember the word Sparkle. Sparkle's super easy. So if you want to make the word something harder, you can make it something harder. You can make it crocodile or something really hard if you want. So it's funny for them to have to say it, And again, rinse and repeat with the next question. And I'll tell you, the kids absolutely love this game, even though it's just something super simple. They really like it because they think it's funny, and they're really nailing this sentence into their head. One student says, when, and do, you, leave, home, every day, sparkle, you're out. I leave home at about 6:15, sparkle, next person's out. And then continue, the sentence goes around and around and around until there's no one left. The kids love it. Maybe you think this game is stupid, but for some reason, the kids absolutely love this game. But the first time you play it, you will have to model it quite well because the kids are going to be confused. And if you don't have well, I think there's no other really way to explain it besides just playing it with them and letting them see it, or have it on the PPT model really, really well. Okay. So yeah, this game is awesome. And then at the end, I'll make sure they write all of the questions and the structure for the answer in their notebook. And then we count the score. Okay, so let's count the score, and I'll quickly count the score. Okay, they're not grade 1, they don't need to practice counting. So I count the score, and whichever team has the most points, I award a star, the kids cheer, and that's it. Okay, the kids have fun in a lesson like this. Okay, I just want to re-emphasize. I forgot to say in the beginning of this video, this class is made for a class in China. There's 50 students, and I have no ability to rearrange their seating. Okay, this is quite important. There is no way that I can, it's not my classroom. Okay, I'm going around with a USB, and I can't have them move around in there, rearrange their seating or something like that. And I just want to remind you guys, the reason I break them into girls and boys is because of classroom management. And some people like to put them in different teams. They'll be like, okay, what team do you want to be today? What team do you want to be today? I don't think this is as effective because you're not gonna know who was on what team in the past. Okay. And if you have them on 4 different teams, and the kids, in China, the kids tend to rearrange their seating. The Chinese teacher will rearrange the rows, or the rows rotate throughout the year. So every week you might come in and the kids are in different positions. They're in the same row, but the row so normally it's there's 8 rows of maybe 8 students, or 6 or 7 students, or 6 students, depending. And they're 2 rows right next to each other. So it might be 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. Now the problem is, as they rotate, the 2 that were next to each other, they are no longer next to each other, and they're across the room from each other. So one week they might be right next to each other and on the same team, and the following week, half of that row is on the other side of the room, partnered with someone else. So if you put them in teams based on this, you're going to come in next week and their teams are going to be on different sides of the room, and it's going to be it's not going to be easy to know which team actually won last week. The reason I like girls versus boys is because it's static. I mean, they're all staying as girls and boys during the year. So it's easy to know, okay, she's in the girls team, she's a girl. He's in the boys team, he's a boy. Okay. And so I like this method the best, and that's what has really worked well for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will be posting another lesson very soon. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section below. And please like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this.